Day by Day Kids Bible, Day 44. Idol Worship, Judges 2. God's people followed God as long as Joshua lived, but then Joshua died. After a time, all the leaders died. Their children grew up to become men and women, but they didn't know God. Then God's people began to worship idols. They worshiped the gods of the nations around them. They forgot God. That made God angry. So when they went out to fight, God was against them. Their enemies would come into the land in secret. They would steal things from God's people. Then they would leave quickly. The people were very upset. So God gave the people leaders to help them. The leaders were also called judges. They would save God's people from their enemies. But soon God's people stopped listening to the judges. They began to worship idols again. God saved his people as long as the judge lived. God felt sorry for the people, so he was kind. But when the judge died, the people would worship idols again. Then God got angry at the people. They haven't kept the special promise we made together, he said. So I'll stop pushing out the enemy nations. These nations will test my people. I'll see if they will follow me or not. A fat king, Judges 3. God left some enemy nations in the land. He used them to train his people to fight. God's people married people from other nations. Then God's people began to worship the fake gods from these nations. Now the king of Aram brought his army in. He became king of the land. He took charge of God's people. But God's people called to God for help. So God chose a judge for them. His name was Othniel. He was Caleb's younger brother. God's spirit was upon him. This judge helped people fight the king. God helped them win. So God's people lived in peace for 40 years. But then Othniel died. God's people began to fight again. So God let King Eglon take over the land. God's people had to serve this king for 18 years. I'll read that part again. God's people began to sin again. So God let King Eglon take over the land. God's people had to serve this king for 18 years. At last God's people called to him for help. So God sent them another judge. He was a left-handed man named Ehud. God's people sent their tax money to King Eglon. They chose Ehud to take the money. Now Ehud had made a sword with 2 edges. It was 1.5 feet long. He tied it to his right leg under his clothes. Ehud took the tax money to King Eglon. This king was a very fat man. He was sitting in a room on his roof. It was cool up there. The judge gave the tax money to the king. Then the judge told the king, I have a secret message. It's only for you. So the king said, Quiet. He sent all his helpers out of the room. Now the king was sitting by himself. Ehud walked up to the king. I have a message from God, said the judge. The king stood up. Then Ehud reached from his strong left hand. He pulled the sword out from under his clothes. He pushed the sword into the king's belly. Even the handle sank in. The king's fat belly closed up over it, so Ehud didn't pull the sword out. Ehud locked the doors and went out another way. Later, the king's servants came back, but they found that the doors were locked, so they said, He must be going to the bathroom. The servants waited and waited, but the king didn't open the doors. At last, the servants got a key. They unlocked the doors. They found that King Eglon was dead. While they were waiting, Ehud had run away. He went up to the hill country. Then he blew a horn. Then some of God's people came to him from the hills. Follow me, said Ehud. God has saved you from your enemy. So the people followed their judge. That day God's people started fighting their enemies, and they won. Then God's people lived in peace for 80 years. Another judge led the people after Ehud. His name was Shamgar. He picked up a stick used for leading oxen. All by himself, he killed 600 enemy men with it.